We're going to be looking at functional foods, and as we go through, I'm sure you'll recognize the foods we're talking about. You just didn't know they had a specific name. So now, forevermore, you'll know that they have a specific name. So functional foods are, as the definition says, foods that have something extra in them besides their normal nutrients. So something that gives them either a health benefit or an energy type of benefit. So let's just go through them and we'll isolate them as to unmodified whole foods would be foods that have been tampered with by anyone in the processing plant or have anything added to them. They naturally have these things that could benefit health. Um, and we've talked about phytochemicals, so you understand their antioxidant activity and anti-carcinogenic activity and that kind of thing. So, but they're naturally in the food. Nobody's added them to the food. And so you get that benefit. Omega-3s that deal with heart disease, fibers that deal with heart disease and colorectal cancers. So those would be naturally in the food, that something that goes beyond their vitamins and minerals, but they haven't been touched or tampered. Um, Then we have the nutraceutical foods. So these would be foods that have been tampered with. So they have had something added to them that the food normally would not have, or something additional to them that gives them a health benefit or can increase energy. So examples, as you notice under the nutrients, you'll see the orange juice that has added calcium to it. Well, that calcium would make it a nutraceutical food because orange juice doesn't normally have a ton of calcium in it. So by adding it, you've given it an extra health benefit that it wouldn't normally have. Now, the reason they put calcium in orange juice is because calcium likes an acid environment. So by putting it in the orange juice, which is acidic, you basically are putting an environment that when you drink it, it's conducive for it to be absorbed, that kind of thing. Herbs, you notice the apple juice that has echinacea added to it, echinacea that's been promoted to reduce colds and that kind of thing. Um, would be considered to be a nutraceutical food now that you have something that is declared to have a health benefit. Ergogenic aids would be things that would give you energy, not necessarily things that you could make ATP out of, but things that would be a stimulant. So some of the energy bars and energy drinks have stimulants in them that would increase your heart rate, increase, make you feel awake, give you more energy, and that kind of thing, but they don't really deliver anything that you could make ATP out of. So those kinds of things are under the heading of. I just wanted to give you a kind of a consumer warning here. You have things that are added to foods that aren't normally there that may be classified as nutraceuticals, like the Special K with blueberries. Uh, but you have to be careful with advertising. They're very smart and people buy off on it, like, ooh, I'm going to buy this, it's a lot better. But as you notice, there's less than 2% blueberries in that box, right? Basically, there is no lemon. I mean, they have some natural flavors and stuff. I don't know why they call them lemon clusters. Maybe it's the name of the cluster, I guess, not really the idea that it has lemon. Um, so anyway, this would not be a nutrient. There's not enough blueberries in there to make a difference, but it's definitely a marketing tool. Also, spinach wraps. You notice that there is some spinach powder in there, but that is not enough to make it green. The actual green comes from blue and yellow dyes. That's why they're green. So even though it, appears when you look at it that, oh, it's got spinach, it's made out of spinach, it's going to be really healthy, there really is not any spinach in there to speak of. So this would not be a nutraceutical food because there's not enough to make any difference. So be careful with marketing and make sure you read the labels and read what's actually in there, type of thing. And I don't know if I mentioned it with the food label section, but the top three nutrient or top three food products in the ingredient list uh, are what basically make up 98% of the food. So if you see spinach powder way down the list, that means there's not a bunch of it in. You hear a lot about probiotic foods these days, and probiotic foods are foods that basically have living bacteria in them. So living cultures, so yogurt, acidophilus milk. You can actually buy supplements that are freeze-dried bacteria, and they are referred to as probiotic supplements. Um, there really isn't any, I don't think anybody really knows how much of these you need, but they come in colony forming units, CFUs. So you can get upwards of 5 billion to 15 billion, 30 billion, whatever. There's really, I don't think anyone really knows exactly how much you need. They are of benefit though, and the taking supplements is recommended, uh, uh, but and you kind of have to know what you're doing in some cases. If you're in good general health, you can get a good um, probiotic supplement that has a wide range of bacteria. Make sure you research it though and look at what bacteria are good, that kind of thing. Um, the amount of probiotics in some of the yogurts is not enough really to do you any good, kind of a thing. But also looking at the yogurt situation, make sure that when you purchase yogurt, it should list right around the ingredients somewhere on the container if it contains living cultures of like lactobacillus, bifidobacteria, those kinds of things. I've noticed I've gone into stores and looked at yogurt, and normally the store brand yogurts, and there will not be an indication that there's live cultures in there. So the live culture bacteria tend to cost a little bit more, but they are going to be the probiotic foods that can be of benefit. Uh, so, well, let's talk a little bit more about probiotic foods. Here's some of the strains that you should be looking for on your yogurts. Lactobacillus strains, Streptococcus strains, Bifidobacteria. Lactobacillus and Bifidobacteria are probably the two main ones. Just so you know what Bifido is, you notice that some of them look like they have a Mickey Mouse head with the ears on it. That's the bifid piece. But there's different kinds of these. There are people or doctors out there that have done a lot of study on this and done a lot of schooling on different probiotic strains because some of them are good for constipation, other ones are better for diarrhea, some are better if you're immunocompromised, if you have different situations, if you have a celiac, um, all of those kinds of things. There can be different strains that work better than other ones. So do your research, and then I take a supplement, so I would recommend you looking at that. I think a good thing to do. As far as health benefits, there's quite a few, but just some of the ones that I'm listing is you can reduce pathogenic bacteria or what might be called putrefactic bacteria by you need to have the probiotics need to be able to outcompete these bacteria. And so when you're on a probiotic diet or a probiotic health regime where you're taking supplements and stuff like that, or you're eating some yogurts, you need to do it every single day. Because if you don't, the putrefactive bacteria will outcompete they sometimes call probiotic bacteria friendly bacteria, kind of a thing. But if you get them to colonize and they can outcompete the putrefactive pathogenic bacteria, then that's a good thing. And if the way they do that, they can secrete some substances that the putrefactive bacteria don't like, some organic acids and things. They can help reduce GI attachment. That's sometimes when you have urinary infections, they say that the bacteria attach to the urethra and all that. And so cranberry juice is something that works for that. Well, this kind of does the same thing. It prevents them from attaching to the gastrointestinal tract. They outcompete them for space. They reduce the pH of the intestines so that the putrefactive bacteria don't like it. So there's quite a few things they do. Um, they can also been shown, depending on the type of bacteria, can decrease GI cancer, increase calcium absorption. So there's quite a few things they can do. They can increase stools size, and so that makes you eliminate the stools faster, decrease triglycerides, and so you might remember, or you may have been done for you, whenever you were on kind of long-term antibiotics, the doctor or whoever may have suggested you eat yogurt. The reason is because if it's a broad spectrum antibiotic, it's going to kill the bacteria in your intestines as well as the ones that's making you sick. Uh, and the bacteria in your intestines make vitamin K, which is part of clotting, which is an important one, especially for older individuals. Um, and so if you're killing those bacteria, there's a potential that you're not making the vitamin K blood for blood clotting, and so you could become a bleeder. But eating the friendly bacteria, then you would reintroduce that and help if the antibiotic is killing the bacteria, you'd reintroduce that kind of a thing. So digestive disorders, HIV patients sometimes recommended to take probiotics. So there's lots of reasons. So I would highly recommend researching it for yourself and seeing what you think, kind of thing. Prebiotic foods are foods that these probiotic bacteria or friendly bacteria like to eat. Uh, and these are carbohydrates that are not digested, so basically they're going to get to the large intestines where these bacteria are, and the bacteria are going to munch on them, and that will create an environment that will be conducive for them out competing the other bacteria. We talked about one earlier, the oligosaccharides, if you remember, were prebiotic. And so those are specific kind. But to be a prebiotic food, you have to be resistant to digestion. As we said, oligosaccharides are. Some of the soluble fibers can also be somewhat prebiotic. Um, and then they have to be fermentable by the bacteria in the large intestines, and they have to have some benefit to the host's health. So all of those criteria have to be met before they could be considered a prebiotic bacteria. As far as the prebiotic foods, there's FOS, inulin, and those. These all are foods that you would find in plants. So plants have a lot of benefits. That's why we're kind of brainwashing you on plants. I mean, think about it. We've talked about oligosaccharides. We've talked about fibers. We're talking about prebiotics. So lots of stuff in plants. So only in plants. As far as I know, there aren't any meat products that are probiotic because meats are usually go through putrefaction. That's why it smells when it rots, and so the putrefacted bacteria like the meats, kind of a thing. Symbiotic foods would then contain a mixture probiotics and prebiotics. And so you'll see a lot of yogurts have the bacteria plus FOS added, some of the higher end yogurts. Um, and then the supplements will a lot of times have inulin or FOS that will go along with the bacteria so that it would kind of encourage them to grow. Kind of. So the analysis of, so if you're a little bit confused, prebiotics are food that the bacteria like. Probiotics are the actual the food that have living cultures of bacteria in them, and then symbiotics is when you combine both of those together. All right. So that ends our session on functional foods.